He believed his plan was perfect, a routine appendectomy designed to disguise the sterilization that would make it impossible for me, Alara, to ever have children. But Alistair Vance, my husband, never imagined that I would uncover his dark secret and use his mistress, Serena, as my weapon against him. I am 34. The first sensation I felt upon waking was not mere pain, but profound confusion. A constant rhythmic beeping filled the silence of the hospital room. An antiseptic smell stung my nose, and my throat felt as if I had swallowed sand. I tried to move, but a sharp, stabbing pain in my lower abdomen instantly stole my breath. It was deeper and more invasive than the pain I had expected from an appendectomy. Just that morning, I had kissed Alistair goodbye, believing he would be home for dinner following a simple surgery. But as I lay there, under the fluorescent light that made everything seem pale and sickly, I knew something was terribly wrong. A young nurse whose name tag read Lena entered the room. She moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting my IV drip and checking my vitals. However, there was a mixture of pity and nervousness in her gaze that deeply unsettled me. Every time her eyes met mine, she quickly glanced toward the door, as if terrified that someone might discover her. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Vance?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Thirsty," I managed to croak. "And it hurts down here. Is the pain this bad normally?" Lena froze, her hand suspended over the monitor. She looked toward the door again, biting her lip. Then she leaned in, creating a small, temporary bubble of confidentiality in the sterile space. "Ma'am, didn't they inform you about the second procedure?" she whispered. Her words fell upon me like a bucket of ice water. My heart immediately began to hammer against my ribs, an anxious drumbeat reflected in the monitor's accelerating pulse. "What second procedure?" I demanded. "What are you talking about, nurse?" She swallowed hard. "Your husband, he signed the authorization while you were in surgery. He authorized a tubal ligation." The world ceased to move. The words sterilization, impossible, absurd, floated in the cold air. Alistair. My Alistair? I closed my eyes, and the memory of our 5th anniversary celebration struck me with unbearable cruelty. We had discussed baby names. I had spoken with a shamefully naive enthusiasm about converting the study in our penthouse into a nursery. He had taken my hand and assured me all in good time. I just want everything to be perfect for when our child arrives. I had believed him completely, finding refuge and stability in him. The physical pain from the appendectomy now felt distant and insignificant compared to the absolute devastation tearing through my chest. I remembered his panicked face when I had collapsed in pain and how he had insisted on handling everything. And he had handled it. While I slept, trusting and vulnerable, he had made a final decision about my body, my future, and my dreams without my consent. He had wielded an invisible scalpel and permanently removed my ability to be a mother, and he did it all wearing a beautiful smile. The surgery had not merely removed my appendect, it had violently ripped out the future I had spent 5 years meticulously building. The architect of my ruin was the very man who had sworn his life to protect me. The hours that followed were a profound torture of powerlessness. My repeated calls to Alistair went straight to voicemail, and anxiety swelled inside me like a black tide. Finally, Dr. Thorne, the silver-haired surgeon with an impeccable reputation among the Olympia City elite, appeared. He exuded an icy arrogance. "Mrs. Vance," he stated, avoiding my eyes, "the appendectomy was successfully contained. You will be able to go home in a couple of days. When I questioned him about the second procedure, Dr. Thorne finally looked up with an expression of calculated boredom. Oh, yes, a small preventative measure. Your husband informed us of a history of alleged gynecological issues and considered it prudent to resolve it all concurrently. It was a decision made entirely in your best interest to spare you a future surgery and more stress. His tone was condescending and casual. You didn't have my consent, I stated, rage, pure and blistering hot, dissolving the shock. We had your husband, he responded dismissively, citing him as my legal proxy in a medical emergency. Everything is in order, ma'am. Now, if you'll excuse me. Alistair arrived that afternoon, walking in with a radiant, false smile and a huge bouquet of white tulips. When he tried to kiss me, I turned my face away. Why? I asked, my voice flat and emotionless. He launched into his performance. He sat beside me, reaching for my hand, but I instantly pulled it away, as if his touch burned me. His face took on a mask of grave concern. Ilara, my love, the anesthesia is still making you confused. You're sensitive. You're not thinking clearly. I am thinking more clearly than ever. You sterilized me, Alistair, without my consent. He insisted he did it for us, weaving an alternate reality where I was an unstable woman terrified of motherhood. You were under a lot of stress, he insisted, his tone becoming paternalistic. I just made the difficult decision you weren't brave enough to make. I freed you from that pressure, my love. He was expertly calling me crazy, invalidating my desires and my very mind. Get out, I finally screamed. He stood up, offended, adjusting the knot of his tie. I'll come back when you're more rational, he stated before the door clicked shut. The first call I made was to Ria, my best friend and anchor. After hearing the devastating news, Ria's response was immediate and filled with pure venom. Listen to me, Ilara, you are not crazy. He's a monster, and we're going to make him pay. Returning to our penthouse in Cosmopolis, Santa Fe, felt like walking into a crime scene, a gilded cage designed by my captor. Following Rhea's advice, I swallowed my rage. I offered a hollow apology that night, claiming I had been hormonal and sore. The smile of self-satisfaction that appeared on his face was nearly unbearable. I know my life. I knew you'd understand. You always do. That night, as he slept peacefully, I lay awake. I locked myself in the guest bathroom, turning the shower on full blast, not to bathe, but to drown out the sound of my breakdown. I cried a deep, gut-wrenching cry for a future that had been stolen. I wept for the children who would only exist in my imagination, and for the naive woman who had believed the prince was not the dragon. In the silence that followed the tears, the pain transformed. It crystallized into a cold, lucid determination. The sadness yielded to a glacial anger. He had underestimated me, assuming I would simply shatter and accept the life he designed. He was profoundly wrong. The investigation began the next day while he was in a meeting. I went to his office and tried to access his state-of-the-art laptop. After several failed attempts, I remembered a crazy hunch about his business partner's dog, Princess, and her birthday. I typed Caramel Princess 2743. The source uses a variant of this, and the screen unlocked. Inside a folder labeled Special Consult, I found undeniable proof, a copy of a $25,000 transfer to Sterling Medical Services LLC, Dr. Thorne's company, dated just 2 days before my operation. Proof of bribery. The second folder, Project G, chilled me even more. It contained photos of Alistair with a stunning woman with blonde hair and a feline smile, Serena, a young fashion designer he was seeing. But alongside the photos
were dense documents, contracts, and massive bank statements. This was the skeleton of a fraud. I quickly emailed the entire contents of Project G to Rhea. Utilizing my professional eye as an architect, I examined the documents. They detailed an investment contract between Alistair and Serena, and a certificate of incorporation for a company named Zenith Acquisitions Group, Horizon Development LLC. Bank statements showed a massive transfer of $1.2 million from Serena's personal account into the new company's account. The structure was deliberately opaque and designed not to partner, but to dispossess. Alistair, the only legal agent, had total and unlimited control. Rhea called back immediately, her voice a mix of fury and professional excitement. She confirmed that the LLC was only 2 months old, possessing no assets, no history, nothing but that bank account. Alistair had convinced Serena to sell an inherited property she got from her parents in the Hamptons equivalent area to invest in his supposed luxury real estate project in Athon, Miami. The money was never going to any project, I realized. It was going to finance his big move to become independent. Once the money was secured in his other companies, the LLC would be declared bankrupt and Serena would lose everything. He was erasing me from his reproductive future and her from his financial future, simultaneously. Rhea recognized the opportunity. She didn't count on his wife being smart enough to decipher his master plan. I proposed the wicked idea that made me smile for the first time in days, that if that immense sum of money disappeared at the absolutely crucial public moment, it would result in a catastrophe and total financial ruin. He used her money to try to secure the future he stole from me. We'll use that exact same money to demolish his world. The plan was for total retribution. Contacting Serena was terrifying, but my new cold logic dictated she was merely another victim and my only possible ally. I found her profile and sent a concise, professional direct message. Serena, this is Ilara, Alistair Vance's wife. I urgently need to talk to you about an investment. It's critical and in your best interest. Don't tell him anything. She responded quickly, and we met at the Maison Case, Café Elegance, in Soho. She initially looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and disdain, expecting a scene about adultery. I interrupted her, sliding a folder across the table. I'm here for this. The first document she saw was the copy of the surgical authorization bearing Alistair's signature. Her denial wavered. What is this? She demanded. It's the order Alistair signed to have me sterilized without my explicit consent while I was on an operating table for appendicitis. This is what he does to the woman he sleeps with every night. I then presented the fraud documents, the ZAG certificate, and the copy of her $1.2 million transfer. That company is an empty shell, Serena, and he's the only one with the key to the vault. This is what he's doing to you. I watched the color drain from her face. Her eyes, initially defiant, were now fixed on the clauses, seeing her own name juxtaposed next to the signature of the man she supposedly loved. The exact moment her denial broke, replaced by a horrified understanding, was palpable. Her hands began to tremble. The whole thing is a lie? The project in Athon? Everything, she asked, vulnerable. Everything, I confirmed. You are his golden ticket to his next big deal. And once he gets it, he'll discard you, just like he discarded me. Tears of pure and absolute fury began to roll down her cheeks. That bastard, she whispered, rage trembling in her voice. He took everything from me, my parents' house, and he took my ability to have children, I stated. For the first time, our gazes met, not as rivals, but as two women united by the betrayal of the same manipulative man. Serena wiped her tears, her expression hardening. She asked, "What do you want me to do?" Her voice now perfectly still.
The stage for Alistair's downfall was set at the Grand Ballroom of the Zenith Tower, St. Regis Hotel, in Olympia City. The room was packed with the elite of the financial world. Alistair was in his element, his $1,000,000 smile dazzling everyone. This was the night of his professional consecration, the launch of Aethon Rising, Horizons Miami. Serena was there, flawlessly playing the part of the proud mistress. No one suspected the coming storm. The climax was the ceremonial signing of a major co-investment agreement. Alistair needed to publicly demonstrate the liquidity of Zenith Acquisitions Group, ZAG, Serena's money, to seal the deal. He ascended the stage. Trust, his voice resonated through the room. In this business, trust is everything, and today I am honored to have the trust of our distinguished partners. As he spoke, I sent a one-word text message to Rhea, who was stationed nearby with the notary. Now. Alistair continued, announcing they would make the initial fund transfer right here and now, as an act of total transparency. He signaled his assistant. The huge LED screen behind him, which was prepared to display the transaction confirmation, flickered. Instead of a bank confirmation, the screen displayed a screenshot of the ZAG bank statement. The $1.2 million balance was visible, but superimposed on top of it, in giant, relentlessly flashing red letters, was the digital stamp. Account frozen, pending fraud investigation. A slow murmur of confusion spread through the hall. Alistair turned, his face going from a perfect tan to ashen white in a second. His famous smile was frozen in a grimace of horror. At that precise moment, the main doors of the ballroom swung wide open. Serena and I entered, flanked by Rhea and 2 court officers. We walked down the central aisle in complete silence. The room fell into a sepulchral silence. We reached the foot of the stage. Alistair, still paralyzed at the podium, looked down at us, exposed and trapped. "Alistair Vance," one officer announced, his voice professional and cold, "you are hereby served with a civil lawsuit for assault and battery concerning the documented violation of bodily autonomy." "Alistair Vance," the second officer followed immediately, "you are hereby served with a criminal complaint for the crime of fraud." The cameras that came to cover a triumph now exploded into a frantic frenzy to capture a public execution. I saw the raw panic in his eyes, the horrifying realization that his entire world, built on arrogance and lies, was shattering live and in person at his feet. The architects of his demolition were the 2 women he had confidently tried to destroy. The scandal was seismic. His partners immediately withdrew, and his own firm swiftly fired him. His high society friends stopped answering his calls. Alistair was arrested a week later. Dr. Thorne also lost his medical license for life and faced criminal charges. Alistair, facing a long prison sentence, attempted to negotiate a generous divorce settlement in exchange for me dropping the felony charges. My answer, conveyed through Rhea, was simple and absolute. No. No amount of money could buy my silence or give me back what he had taken. Serena held firm, successfully recovering every last penny of her money. A month later, she publicly announced a substantial donation of $250,000 to a women's violence support organization, specifically stating that her gift was in honor of Ilara Vance's strength and bravery. It was a powerful gesture of solidarity born of a shared betrayal. Alistair's empire had turned to ash. He was eventually sentenced to 12 years in prison. His fate no longer concerned me. A year later, I met the headquarters of the Steadfast Compass Initiative, the Your Decision Foundation, in the heart of downtown Aethon. I used the considerable money recovered from the civil lawsuit as the initial seed funding for this place. The space I designed is bright and open, featuring glass walls that symbolize the transparency Alistair so despised. Here, a dedicated team of lawyers, psychologists, and social workers offers free help to women who have been victims of reproductive coercion, financial abuse, or manipulation. I sold the Cosmopolitan penthouse, liquidating everything that tied me to that fraudulent life, and moved to a smaller apartment that feels entirely mine. The pain of what I lost remains a scar on my soul, a perpetual reminder, but it no longer defines who I am. My dedicated work and the women we help define me now. My laptop chimes with a new email. I need help. It is from a young woman who tells a painfully familiar story about a controlling husband. I look out the window at the bustle of downtown Athon, a city that nearly destroyed me, but instead gave me an undeniable purpose. They often say revenge doesn't bring peace, but allying with my rival to expose the man who betrayed us both gave me the deepest sense of justice. Sometimes, the most effective way to heal is by ensuring definitively that the one who hurt you can never, ever hurt anyone else again.